morning, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Dawn, and this channel is Dawn Does Keto. This channel is all about my accountability and my personal journey on the ketogenic diet. This segment that we are doing, it's a new reading segment, and it's called Dinner with Dawn
and Mike.
And we are currently in the process of reading the book by Gary Taubes, The Case Against Sugar. So we will get into that discussion here momentarily. But real quick, I'm going to show you guys what we're having for dinner. It is keto chicken noodle soup. And I'm in the process of trying to put up a short on YouTube to show you how to make it. I just don't know how well that's going to work out.
Some technical difficulties, if you will, but you know what?
Again, we've told you guys multiple times we're not tech savvy, so I'm having some issues with that. But this is just the Trader Joe's noodleless chicken soup.
Mm-hmm.
And I added an extra can of chicken breast to it, and they are the Egg Life wraps cut into noodles.
Right.
So super,
like we used in the roast.
Right. Super easy.
I honestly think those are better than actual noodles because we've had them before and they're phenomenal. So
we'll give this a taste test real quick. It's super hot though, so I don't want to burn my mouth. Good. It
oh
is
my gosh.
very tasty.
I'm telling you.
I must say.
The Egg Life wraps, just as wraps like we've used them before, I wasn't like as impressed with them. But since you found ways to use them in other foods to make noodles or other things, we did those, they were like wraps, but we fried them on the, if I remember right, didn't we fry
quesadillas.
The quesadillas, yes. And we fried them on the Blackstone. They're phenomenal. And now, and you know what's funny? When I'm out driving, and I'm sure you've seen it too, but there's like billboards around for Egg Life wraps now.
Yeah.
We must have made them popular or something. Must be us. We should get royalties.
It's all us. I also tried something else new. I did some of the halloumi grilling cheese. And what I did was I deep fried it in bacon grease. Mm-hmm. So we are going to try this for the first time. They're called cheese fries.
Mm-hmm. And if it's cheese, can't go wrong.
You know what's so funny is I just commented back to Mary because she was saying that my weight gain could be from cheese. And I said, well, I really don't eat that much cheese. And then look.
And I love cheese and I'll eat it anytime, anywhere, for any reason.
What do you think? Those are pretty good.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, they just look like this. And it gives them like a little crunch on the outside.
Mm-hmm. It's like a non-breaded cheese stick. But they're not sticks. But
some of them are, but when you get down to the bottom of the bag, it's like pieces. Mm-hmm. So
before we get into the chapter of the day, this is where Dawn normally asks me what I did for lunch.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you about your weight because I gave a weight update yesterday, but obviously did not do yours. So I was going to wait for you to do that.
I haven't even watched yesterday's video yet, just so you know.
We've been a little bit busy.
Yeah, it's the end of the month of work, so I'm really busy at work. I don't have a chance to really sit down. Sometimes when I eat, I'll watch the video, but I've been so busy, I haven't really had a chance to do that.
And then he got off work today. He had an appointment to get his hair cut. Yeah, he needed all that.
You see, there ain't much there.
All that haircut up there.
Right.
He had to help with his dad, and then he came home. I told you guys before, we're working on a project upstairs. So he came home, he painted a little bit, so he's in his paint clothes. And then he was updating the checkbook and paying bills. And
you just made us sound old, updating the checkbook.
Yeah. Young kids,
how many people do that nowadays, right?
Young kids don't update the checkbook anymore.
I'm old school, have to have a checkbook, have to have it updated. I got to know what's going on all the time because I just feel much better about, everything when I know.
And I just let him do it.
Right. Well, I mean,
because then I don't have to worry about it at all.
Who wants to do it? That's the thing. But anyway, I haven't really had a chance to watch the video, so I don't know what your weight update was, and I'll watch the video and we'll get that information. But my weight update, which Dawn apparently is not going to tell you on Tuesday. She's going to wait for me to reveal that to you on Wednesday, and that's fine. After 2 weeks of going up after BBB&E, I finally settled down and I actually lost 1 pound. So I believe my weight was 150.6, maybe.
I'm not even 100%
It was like 151.6 last week and 150.6. So I dropped 1 pound, and that's right where I want to be. In the 150 point. I'm good anywhere in that range.
You actually said between 150 and 155.
155, right. But I mean, if I can
you didn't want to see the weight just continuously go up.
No, because I knew probably my body just readjusting to the keto flexible lifestyle that I live. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. Again, trying to stay more consistent. I'm trying to be more structured in my diet and what I'm eating and when I'm eating and how much and everything. So I think we've gotten back to a good place now. I'm
Not me. I'm still going up.
Well,
hopefully I'll level off too. So what did you eat today?
So for lunch today, I took a chicken breast that was gifted to me by none other than Dawn Does Keto. At first, I wasn't sure what I was going to eat.
Gifted him a chicken breast.
I didn't know what I was going to eat today because we didn't have any leftovers. But you had sent me a message last night after I went to bed and said, hey, go ahead and eat that chicken breast. So I took that. I took some cheese and sprinkled cheese on top. And I also put some pepperoni on top of that. Warmed it up in the microwave, melted it down.
Was it good?
It was very good. I mean, the chicken was what it was, but it was very good considering I wasn't going to have anything. And then I had some pork rinds, but I didn't end up eating any of those. We didn't have any baggy bacon, so I couldn't have any of that.
I ate the last one yesterday.
And I think that was it. I had that, and then I had a Zip Fizz beverage, the new addictive beverage that I drink now that I am so crazy about. It's just so good. It was comfortable, but again, I was so busy. If I'd had anything else to eat, I wouldn't have been able to eat it anyway. I just didn't have time. I felt good. I'd rather eat something more structured than just like a beef stick and some cheese sticks, which I don't even think I took those today, just because I knew I had the chicken breast. So that was good. I was fine with that.
I also had a Zip Fizz today. I took that. I took 2 hard-boiled eggs. I took these little mini beef sticks that I bought. They're like jalapeno beef sticks. I took 3 of those. And I took some brown butter bites. So that was my lunch today. And I was fine with that. So I think that's it. We can jump right into the book then. We did read the entire first chapter. Yesterday's video, I said we were only going to read the first half, but it wasn't that long, and there really was nowhere.
Yeah, there was no breaking point.
There was no break in it to like cut it off. So we ended up reading the whole chapter.
So I'm
just it was okay.
Yeah, just disregard what she just said. This chapter wasn't exceptionally long, but it was written well. The information was fantastic from start to finish. Those of you out there who have the book, if you're following along, you already know that chapter 1 was amazing. And so, yeah, we read the whole thing and it worked out real well.
Mike kept saying, because we highlight the parts that we like, and he's like, I can't just like highlight the whole chapter.
I know. I literally thought this chapter was phenomenal. The title of this chapter is Drug or Food, and that, of course, is referring to the sugar. As we go through this chapter, we'll talk about the things that we highlighted, things that jumped out to us. We'll touch on some other, whatever else comes to mind. I would like, if you don't mind, for you out there who are following along with us to, after we do this chapter, in the comments below, tell us what you think. After just reading this chapter, is sugar a drug or food? We will do the same at the end of the chapter, but I'm curious because this chapter it just blew me away.
Yeah, so basically it was just trying to determine whether or not sugar is addictive. And in most people's minds, if it's something addictive, then it can be considered a drug. So that's kind of where he was going with it. Now, of course, sugar does not have the effects of a drug, the immediate effects like dizziness, slurred speech.
Slurred speech. It wasn't having slurred speech.
Or staggering. It doesn't, the effects of sugar are more of like a long-term thing. You don't get like the immediate effects of it.
Right. So when you guys think of drugs, illegal drugs, I mean, it has almost an instant effect. You ingest something that is an illegal narcotic, I mean, you feel the effects immediately. Sugar, although you do and can feel an immediate effect, but again, it's not something like Dawn said that affects your mental state, your physical state.
In the moment.
It's just it's almost like a soothing feeling, but it's not, it's hard to describe. I think we all understand that, but.
Yeah, talking about sugar being addictive, he says here that there was one study where sugar intolerant Canadian Inuit who lack the enzyme necessary to digest the fructose component of sugar, yet they continued to consume sugary beverages and candy despite the abdominal distress it brought them.
Right.
So that kind of tells you right there that if something makes you feel awful and you continue to consume it, does that not tell you that it's an addictive substance?
I mean, that's a good start.
Yeah.
It's most definitely a good start. It's interesting, too, even in some parts of the book, this chapter is so filled with information. It's like you can literally just read it on camera. the whole chapter because it's so amazing. There's a question asked in the book at the very beginning of the chapter. What is it about the experience of consuming sugar and sweets, particularly during childhood, and this is very important, and we'll touch on this in a minute, that invokes so readily the comparison to a drug? So the idea of whether sugar is a drug or not, or a food, is already being laid out for us to think about and to kind of dwell on a little bit, because even though it doesn't impair any of your faculties, the sheer pleasure that it brings you, and we're going to touch on this, it leads to that comparison. I think that's why the question is brought up right off the get-go, because if you think about how you feel when you eat something sweet and what normally drives us, I don't know about you, but I know for me, I have those weak moments where I can taste it in my mouth without even having it in there. Like I know what it's going to taste like.
That's called the cephalic insulin response. Like sometimes you can just smell sugar. You can walk past a bakery and your insulin will go up just from the smell of it.
Oh my goodness. See, I didn't know that.
You don't even have to eat it.
I did not know that.
So he says here that sugar appears to be a substance that causes pleasure with a price that is difficult to discern immediately and paid in full only years or decades later, which is what we were talking about, that it's not an immediate thing, that you see the results from it, but you will eventually see the results from it. He also says most of us today will never know if we suffer even subtle withdrawal symptoms from sugar because we'll never go long enough without it to find out.
So two things here. The first part goes back to earlier in the book when they were talking about not blaming anything on sugar. Like the medical community just doesn't want to blame anybody for anything for sugar because it's not a short-term instant, you don't eat sugar and then all of a sudden you have diabetes. It takes time.
A while. Right.
So that plays into that. The second thing about the going without sugar long enough to know, doesn't that just make you kind of angry? Are we that bad? Are we
we have access to it so readily. And that's something else he talks about is just the progression of, sugar wasn't really available at one point. And now it's just so readily available that nobody goes long terms without not having it.
So that's interesting because yes, it's readily available. You can get it anywhere at any time for any reason. But the other part of that, I think, over the last how many years, they, being the food industry, have just quietly incorporated sugar into everything we eat so that we are always consuming it. So that is another foundational building block, in my opinion, towards the addictive side.
Just the fact that they have incorporated sugar into everything. It says here sugar was used to sweeten liquor, wine in Europe as early as the 14th century. Even cannabis preparations in India and opium-based wines and syrups included sugar as a major ingredient.
And, it's funny. So when I initially hear that, when I read that, I'm thinking you're taking something that's basically laced with a drug and you're adding sugar to it. Well, they explain why.
Because it's bitter.
Right. The flavor of it is bitter. And this helps obviously sweeten it up and make it more tolerable, more palatable. But what they do after this is what I find incredible.
They talk about Coca-Cola as well and how the sugar, because there was cocaine in the original formula of Coca-Cola and they added sugar again to cover the bitterness of it. Coca-Cola is the sublimated essence of all that America stands for. It's the single most widely distributed product on the planet and the second most recognizable word on earth. Sugar was and still is a critical ingredient also in American blended tobacco cigarettes. I didn't even know that they put sugar in cigarettes. No,
that's amazing. But I want to go back for just a moment and touch on the liqueurs and the other drinks, the wines that were originally had, the opium and some of the other things in them, and like Coca-Cola with the cocaine. Now, again, it wasn't like large quantities, so people weren't actually like becoming addicted to cocaine.
But they got addicted to the sugar.
But here's what they did. So they put the sugar in, to cover up that bitterness and to make it palatable. And then they slowly removed the opium and the cocaine and the other narcotic ingredients, and left the sugar. And I'm almost feeling like that made a bigger difference than in its original form. Because that's where it comes in, where Dawn mentions about Coca-Cola. They removed that from there, and Coca-Cola has done nothing but go through the roof. Now, carbonated beverages in general, but at the time, Coca-Cola was like the carbonated beverage, and they sweetened it with sugar, and look at where it's at today. It's now, like you said, it is the most recognizable brand in the world, and the second most recognizable word.
Well, because In other languages, Coca-Cola is still Coca-Cola.
Right. It's just, that's crazy. And then we get down to what you just mentioned about the cigarette. When I
tobacco.
read that, and I read this before Dawn. I read this chapter before she did. I told her, I said, you are not going to believe what you read in this chapter. We're not smokers. Never have been. I would have never known, because I don't look into it that much.
No,
I mean, we've never,
I've never done any research on cigarettes
or anything like that. But they put sugar in the American blended cigarettes now, not necessarily around the world, but in the American produced cigarette, there is sugar. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's a double whammy, by the way. You got sugar and nicotine, both addictive substances. At least we're building the case for the addiction.
It makes you realize why cigarettes are so addictive, though, because it's not just one thing, it's multiple things.
Here's another thing, right? They put that sugar in the other beverages to cover up the bitterness. They put sugar in cigarettes to give it that mild experience. Because again, smoking probably does not taste all that great. So they put something in there to help make it more tolerable. And I know, again, we don't really look into it, but I mean, the things that you can buy today to smoke, flavored cigars and the vapes now that are all different kinds of flavors.
Yeah.
And why is that? It makes it more palatable for the consumer.
More enticing. Yeah. So he talks about how tea and coffee with sugar by the 1870s, it had become a necessity of life. Even during like the Great Depression, people didn't have a lot of money, but they would forego a healthy meal to obtain like a sugary food of some kind.
It's funny, or interesting, I should say, that during the Great Depression, things were so out of whack money-wise, like people couldn't buy stuff and they didn't have a lot of money to do it anyway. But sugar became very cheap, very accessible, and so like Dawn just mentioned,
it was almost like by design.
It feels like it. Like they did that on purpose. And so then, like she said, you know, instead of going out and trying to get something to eat,
something healthy and something that's going to sustain you, they'd spend their money, the little bit that they had, on candy.
On sweets. So just another little tweak of that addictive property. You know, if you're a conspiracy theorist, I mean, if you really think about stuff like that, it just makes you wonder, you know, was that by design? Was this a way, not that the Great Depression was created or generated to cause an addiction to sugar, but that because of the circumstances, they took advantage of the situation and made sugar a primary source of nutrients at this point, because people were eating it over regular food. And
he says that sugar craving does seem to be hardwired into our brains. He talks about babies, and if you give them the choice of sugar water or plain water, they're going to greedily suck down the sugar water right from the very beginning and basically make faces and not drink the plain water.
Yeah, they did studies with that, with newborns, where they gave them sugar water first.
And then they wouldn't drink the regular.
They didn't want, I don't think they wanted
cow's milk either.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't sweetened. You know, this is talking about babies and people, but there's also a study that they talked about with cows, and this was in 1952. They couldn't get the cattle to eat the plants that they didn't like, and in order to get them to eat those plants, they sprayed them with sugar.
They sugar coated them. And I think that's where we started the whole concept of sugar coating anything.
Yeah, and so the cattle then immediately ate all of the plants.
They not only ate it, but then because they realized where it was coming from, they would like follow the farmer around as he was spraying other stuff. Like they knew where it was coming from.
Yeah, he says in several instances, the researchers reported the cattle quickly became aware of what was going on and followed the spraying can around expectantly. An essay in the New York Times observed in 1884, we can give a false palatableness to even the most indigestible rubbish. So you can take something that would normally not taste good at all, and if you add sugar to it, all of a sudden it becomes palatable to everybody.
So that's an interesting concept. Without getting into a lot of history here, personal history, I am not a drinker. Don't drink alcohol at all. And I have made the comment over the years, because I think like one of your favorite alcoholic beverages is amaretto sour. Not that she partakes a lot in that, but again,
I don't drink that often, but every now and then.
But my point here is that alcohol, in most cases, plain old alcohol is rough to swallow, right? It just doesn't taste all that great. But when you add in the sweetness of the fruity beverages and the flavorings that we've created and all these different drinks that we've created, it makes the drink more palatable. And it just goes back to this very simple concept that if you think about a lot of the things that we eat today, and now obviously learning even ingest through our lungs by smoking or vaping, think of the power that sugar has over us and how it makes us do things differently than we might otherwise do.
I mean, I used to drive out of my way to get go to Dunkin' Donuts and get a donut. I don't drive out of my way for hardly anything. For something like that, you will.
Mm-hmm.
But he also talks about the experiments done on humans are rare, obviously because you cannot, for ethical reasons, you can't test this out on children and people. But obviously it's been tested in rats and other animals. So it says here, rats are given sweetened water in experiments and find it significantly more pleasurable than cocaine. So the rats are already addicted to cocaine. They've given the rats cocaine intravenously, and yet when they offer them sugar, within a couple days, they'll go for the sugar before they'll go for the cocaine.
Mm-hmm. And all of this up to this point, as far as the addictive quality, so it triggers the pleasure center in the brain when you eat sugar.
Yeah, it stimulates the neurotransmitters, dopamine in particular.
Right, and that's just like what other drugs do.
Yeah.
All right, so as we asked the question at the beginning, is it a drug or a food?
It has the same reaction.
Other than the immediate effects to your motor skills and your cognitive ability, all the other symptoms, if you will, suggest that we're building a nice case.
Right.
That sugar is addictive.
Well, it goes back to the first chapter where we talk about the trial.
Right.
So he says sugar has been refined from its original form to heighten its rush and concentrate its effects. It provides energy as well as a chemical that stimulates pleasure in your brain.
Right, so there you're getting kind of both sides of the coin because it does give you energy, so that qualifies it as a food, a nutrient, because it does something beneficial. It does stimulate.
Yeah, but doesn't speed do the same thing?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, that's a drug and it gives you, people who take that's what they get from it is energy and like a high from it.
Right.
So it's doing the same exact thing. Switching gears a little bit, he starts talking about like Alcoholics Anonymous and you know how alcoholics have like the 12-step program and they have the book. They call it the 12-step Bible is actually what it's called, or the big book, one or the other. That book actually recommends the consumption of candy and sweets in lieu of alcohol when cravings for alcohol arise.
That's interesting too because I have a little different spin on this. I feel like you're taking somebody who's already vulnerable, who already has the precursor to addiction, and you're just exchanging one addiction for the other. Mm-hmm. And we have a belief because of the strong food industry saying, hey, look, sugar's not the culprit here.
That one's okay.
That's okay. So that's better to be addicted to the sugar, so to speak, than it is to the drugs, which I'm not going to discount
the drugs or alcohol.
But the sugar, again, as we talked about, is a long-term, it affects the body long-term. Whereas the alcohol and the drugs, it's more of an instantaneous short-term effect. Again, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but it just, as we read this and as we had time to kind of chew on it, right? We thought about this, and I did especially, thinking, man, there's just too many coincidences here.
Yeah. By 1920, sugar consumption in the United States hit record highs while breweries were being converted into candy factories because they couldn't, it was during Prohibition, they couldn't make alcohol anymore. And so since people couldn't drink alcohol, they were turning to the sugar. So they turned the breweries into candy factories.
And I wonder if doing that back in that day prompted when Alcoholics Anonymous came out and devised their book, if that didn't help play a part into it. Like, hey,
this will help you get over it.
This will help you get through that because they did it then.
Yeah.
And now we can do it again.
Yeah. So he says by the early 20th century, sugar had assimilated itself into all aspects of our eating experience. It's consumed during breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. And if this is not the truth, I don't know what is, because we eat donuts for breakfast. Mm-hmm. We eat pasta for dinner. That's sugar.
So the pasta thing, the pasta itself as a carbohydrate does turn to sugar, but the tomato sauce that we use for it has sugar in it.
Yeah.
They add sugar to that. Why? to make it more palatable.
I mean, he lists it here that it's not just in the obvious sweet foods: candy bars, cookies, ice cream, chocolate, sodas, juices, sports and energy drinks, sweetened iced tea, jams, jellies, breakfast cereals, both hot and cold, but also in peanut butter, salad dressing, ketchup, barbecue sauces, canned soups, cold cuts, luncheon meats, bacon, hot dogs, pretzels, chips, roasted peanuts, spaghetti sauces, canned tomatoes, and breads. Literally everything that we put into our mouths. Everything that you buy at the store off the shelves is going to have sugar in it.
And you know the sad part? As we entered the keto space and we started trying to watch what we eat and we do the break down the box, we have found they can't even stay away from it in some keto foods because they know the only way you're going to eat that is if they can sweeten it up. Some of the sweeteners they use are okay, and we've learned that.
They use a lot that aren't.
But there's a lot of them that use sweeteners, including just sugar. They just put sugar.
Or maltodextrin or something like that, which spikes your insulin just as much. I talked about this in my video yesterday with the Splenda, how it has dextrose and maltodextrin in it. You might as well just eat regular sugar. We talked about all these different things, and just about everything that you eat throughout the day has some form of sugar in it. When the health craze, the low fat health craze started, what they did was they took the fat out and they replaced that with sugar to make it more palatable. Again, it didn't taste good when they took the fat out because fat is delicious. So they removed the fat because that was the healthy thing to do and added more sugar. So if you look at a light ranch salad dressing or a fat-free ranch salad dressing, the sugar content is higher in that than it is in the regular ranch, because they had to make it taste better.
But it's fat-free, that makes it healthy.
Right. If you look at labels, they're just disguising sugar. It's under like over 50 different names.
Oh, yeah.
And they also have high fructose corn syrup as well. So if you don't see sugar, it probably has another name.
And it might have 2 or 3. That's the other thing that we've learned as we've read labels and become more familiar with products and their ingredients. I'm amazed at how many times we'll go down and, the ingredient list is this long. So you already know it's probably not good for you. But then you see like a form of sugar, a sweetener in the first couple ingredients, and then you go down a little bit more and there's another one, but it's a different name. And then you go down another one, there's a different name.
Yeah.
Like they're just loading it right up.
They removed the fat from yogurts and sugar was added, and it became a heart-healthy snack for breakfast, lunches, and snacks.
The deception on the food labels is crazy, telling you that it's sugar-free, but what they really mean is they didn't add any extra sugar.
No, they say no added sugar a lot of times, but that doesn't mean there's no sugar in it. It just means they didn't add any extra sugar to it. And if sugar's not bad for you, why do they have to even advertise sugar-free? Makes you wonder.
Right.
So just moving on to the next little part here, he basically talks about how sugar and sweets have become a primary contribution to all of our celebrations, holidays, accomplishments, both big ones and small ones. For those of us who don't reward our existence with a drink, which a lot of people will do, it's a candy bar, a dessert, an ice cream cone, a Coke or Pepsi that makes our day. For those of us who are parents, sugar and sweets have become the tools we wield to reward our children's accomplishments, to demonstrate our love and our pride to them, to motivate them, to entice them. Sweets have become the currency of childhood and parenting.
I don't know if I've taken an opportunity while we've done this channel very often to say that this is my sweetie. She's my sweetie pie. I say that because if you read this chapter, if you have this book, this is just another aspect of how sugar has just completely consumed us.
It's associated with a good thing. It is.
Like you said. And so it has become synonymous with love and affection. Not only just rewarding our children, right? And also if they're misbehaving, if you just eat your dinner, or if you just calm down and stop your crying,
you can have a lollipop.
I'll get you a big old lollipop, right? Yeah.
Or if you just want them to be quiet, you give them a lollipop.
And then here, we have sweets, sweetie, sweetheart, sweetie pie, honey bun, sugar. Those are all terms of endearment that we use for our significant others because we've associated sweetness, sugar, with everything good, everything positive. And why? Because when we eat it, and like you said earlier, when we even smell it, it drives us insane. Now, not like, in the literal sense, but I mean, it clearly has an effect on us. This chapter was phenomenal. The information, I would have never even put those two things together.
Yeah.
That those terms are associated with sugar and the sweetness and the joy and the happiness and the pleasure that it brings us because of the way it affects the brain. Unbelievable.
One more thing that he has here, because we're going to have to wrap this up because this video could get real long real quick because we could just keep talking about this.
Great chapter.
Nutritionists have found that we blame our chronic ills and virtually any element of the diet or environment on fats and cholesterol, protein and meats, on gluten and glycoproteins, growth hormones and estrogens and antibiotics, on the absence of fiber, vitamins, and minerals, and surely the presence of salt, on processed foods in general, or overconsumption, our sedentary behavior. They blame it on all of that.
Everything
else before they will concede that it's even possible that sugar has played a unique role in any way other than merely getting us all to eat. Too dang much.
Mm-hmm. Why do we overeat? Because the food's laced with sugar and it tastes so good, we just can't put it down.
So, is sugar a drug?
Yeah, so now here we are. We're at the end of the chapter. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are, and I think Dawn will then share her thoughts. This chapter alone convinced me that sugar is both. It is a food, but it is an addictive food. I just think it's one of those unique substances that is both addictive but also edible. And I think that's what makes it so powerful.
And for me, sugar is something, if it has sugar in it, I can overeat it. I can eat a ton of it.
We all can.
And I can just keep eating it. And what beef, butter, bacon, and eggs has shown me, you know, us just coming off of that in January, is that the foods that we were eating, the meats, the eggs, the butter, those don't have sugar in them, and I could not overeat those. As much as I tried, I couldn't overeat it. I couldn't eat too much of it. I would just get full and just be like, okay, I'm done. But if it was something that has sugar in it, I can eat a lot of it. I mean, I can just keep eating, and you just never get that.
No, your brain tells you that you're still hungry.
Yeah.
Because it wants to feel that pleasure, that
the more sugar you eat, the more sugar you want.
Yep. I don't think there's any doubt that we believe that sugar is addictive.
I know I'm addicted to it.
It is. And it's very difficult in certain circumstances to be able to walk away from it. And like I said, during BBB&E, when we had those moments where we were at functions that had the sweets, like our granddaughter's birthday, right?
Where we couldn't have them.
We couldn't have it, but it was everywhere. There was cupcakes and frosting and the ice cream cake, and then all the regular foods that still had sugars in them that were, and we couldn't have them. But like you said, our insulin was probably spiking because we could smell it.
Yeah, but a cephalic insulin response might spike up a little bit, but then it immediately goes back down once your body realizes it's not getting the sugar.
Right.
But yeah, just smelling it or being around it can definitely invoke that.
But I could taste it. I could taste the sweetness.
It was in the air.
I mean, it made it difficult. That's why I struggled so much during BBB&E, because I had a hard time in those situations, because I don't know if I'm willing to necessarily admit that I have an addiction to sugar, because I always felt like I could not eat it if I didn't want to.
I don't know.
But the desire is always there.
Yeah.
So to me, that means it's a problem for me.
Right. But as it is for most of us. That's it, guys. Again, this video might be a little bit longer. I'm going to try, but what do you cut out? I mean, it's so hard to cut it down, but I'm going to get this up for you guys so it'll come out tomorrow. So we're going to have to wrap it up, but just drop down in the comments what you think.
Yeah, what do you think?
Do you think sugar is a food or drug?
Or, as I put it, both. Because I feel like it's just one of the most unique edible substances that we've ever come across. And I don't think there's ever going to be anything like it as far as a food source.
Yeah. If you like this video, guys, please give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already done that. And hit that bell notification button. That way, when our next video comes out and we talk about Chapter 2, you will be alerted to it. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.